That would also be something I would do, is have a great talk and then forget to hit record.
I know, right? Yeah, it is recording now, so we're good. And then I'll just
Okay.
send it to you whenever it usually loads pretty quick.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So basically what I wanted to talk to you about today was I have some questions from a mom standpoint, from a coach standpoint, and I want to help people understand a couple of things. One, what exactly is sports psychology? Why do we need it? Do we really need it? And who needs it? So, whatever questions come in between are great. But I think the first question, and something that I thought I had an understanding of, and then I got to know you, and now I have a completely different viewpoint of it. What is sports psychology?
Yeah, such a great question. And I think it's one that so many people out there have. And so I'll give you kind of a longer version, but then like the quick version also.
Okay.
So sports psychology is currently, it's now been divided into two separate branches within the field. And so one of those branches is more of the mental health. It's what people think about. So it's mental health with athletes. And predominantly what those people do is spend time specifically with athletes and helping them with mental health. So depression and anxiety and things that you would normally go see a counselor for, there are now specialized counselors to work with athletes. That's not what we do. On the
Okay.
other side, what we do is the mental performance end. So think about anything mental that can impact your performance, like confidence, composure, concentration, letting go of mistakes, dealing with adversity, things that are more performance specific. What we do is we teach mental skills in relationship to that performance. And so the end of sports psychology we do is really called mental performance these days. And so
Okay.
just like you would go see, a physical skills coach. So let's go, you want to get stronger, you go see a strength and conditioning specialist. If you're in baseball and you want to become a better hitter, you go see a hitting coach, right? If you're in gymnastics, you would go see a personalized coach who's going to help you with specific skills that you're working on. What we do is we are personalized coaches. We just work with the mind. We work with your thoughts. We work with getting yourself in the right place at the right time, being mentally composed, feeling confident, because at the end of the day, those are the athletes who are performing at their best, are those who are more mentally tough. So that's kind of the longer version of it. But I mean, the quick version, honestly, is like we help people become more mentally tough so that they can become the best versions of themselves, regardless of what their performance might be. So whether your performance is in sport, in business, in life, we perform every day in everything we do, right? We perform driving, we perform as parents, we perform as spouses, as partners, as friends, but we also perform in our jobs. And so our key is helping people perform at their highest level most consistently. And we teach mental skills such as confidence, composure, concentration to help them do just that.
So I feel like mental performance coaches and sports psychologists are becoming a very popular career field.
Mhm.
How do I, as a parent or as a coach or even as an athlete, what do I know to look for to make sure that I'm not just going to anybody who calls themselves a sports psychologist or a mental performance coach? Because I can imagine that it can be very powerful and beneficial, but that if you're not seeing the right person and they're giving you the wrong advice, that
Yeah.
that could also be a major detriment to your performance.
Yeah, that is such a great point. So think about, how would you look into a babysitter if you have younger kids? Do you just hire the first person off the street who says I babysit, or do you look into their background and get some
Right.
references and figure out who have they worked with before? And you would do something very similar in this regard. We do have within our field, through the Association of Applied Sports Psychology, there is a certification. It's CMPC, and that stands for Certified Mental Performance Consultant. And so that would be the basic certification that you would want your sports psychology consultant, your sports psychologist, if you're looking for a mental health provider, or your mental performance coach, if you're really focused on the performance side, you'd want them to have that, which basically means that they've done the basic requirements within the field. So they have basic background in education and degrees, so educational
Mhm.
degrees, as well as hours within the field that have been supervised and approved by a mentor who's been approved. And so that would be the first key, is like looking for that CMPC designation and logo, because it just gives you a baseline. And from that
Right.
baseline, then ask around, ask for references, ask people around you. Who have you worked with? Who do you like? Who do you know? And then ask for a meeting at the beginning to see how well you connect with that person. Connection is so key in our field. If you don't feel like you connect with the person you're working with your coach, with your mental performance coach, you're not going to get a whole lot out of it. I mean,
Sure.
quite frankly, I could be the best in the world at what I do, but if you and I can't connect on a level that makes you feel comfortable, then it's not going to work. And so that connection is really key. So, ask that person, hey, can I just come and meet you? Can we have a conversation on the phone just so I can get a feel for how well we connect before you would hire that person?
Sure. And then what can I expect if I want to work with Headstrong? What does a typical first appointment look like? And is it, do they all look the same? Is each appointment different depending on who you're working with?
Yeah, great question again. So the first session is always free, and it is that meet and greet where we give you an opportunity to just have a conversation with us, see who we are, see what we're all about, ask whatever questions you have, hear what we have to say in terms of how we work and how we do things. And so we really have worked hard to set up that first appointment to answer all of those questions. And that's one of the reasons why it's free as well, is it gives you an opportunity just to see if this is something you're even interested in. So if you're just kind of curious about it and you don't really know if you could use it or how you could use it or how it would work, the only thing you have to lose is maybe an hour's worth of your time. It doesn't cost you anything, and there's certainly no obligation to sign up for any more sessions, but it just
Right.
gives you an opportunity to get that information. So it might look different each time because it's really, what that person coming in is looking for. And we answer all their questions. We let them know who we are and how we work. And there's 4 of us in the company, and we all might work a little bit different. So it might look a little bit different with each of us. But again, it's all about building that connection and relationship and making sure that we are the right people to help you with your performance.
So if I have a first session with you or another one of your coaches, and then I feel like I want to try maybe sitting down with a different coach, is that okay?
Absolutely. First session's free. With you could actually come in and meet with all 4 of us and just choose who you liked the best. And
Okay.
that first session with all 4 of us would be free.
Oh,
So that's
neat.
absolutely fine. We've had people do that in the past where they're like, I'm not quite sure. Maybe we want a guy, maybe we want a gal. I'm not quite sure who my kid's going to connect best with. Hey, have your free first session with both of them and then make your determination from there. That's absolutely fine.
Okay. And what do you say to people? Because I know I have been guilty of this, who think sports psychology, mental performance, my kid's doing fine.
Yeah.
It's an extra. And then to piggyback on that question, what do you say to athletes who think it's a sign of weakness or it's a sign of like maybe admitting that I'm not at my best if I go sit down and work with somebody? How do you handle those two ways of thinking that I think probably just kind of tend to be a general school of thought when people hear things like mental performance?
Sure. So going back to your first question, a lot of it is about, we're never necessarily training for the now, but we're training in the now for our future. And so just because you might feel like things are good now doesn't mean that in 5 years, if you stayed where you are right now in your performance level, are you going to be where you want to be in 5 years? Probably not, right? So
Right.
put in time physically training, and it's necessary also to put in time mentally training. Another piece of that is you really can't separate the mind and the body, right? You don't just take your head off and leave it at home when you go compete. And so
Right.
your thoughts are influencing your performance, whether you're aware of that or not. And the other key is, we are all mentally training every single time we perform. The question is, are you doing it correctly? Right. So a lot of people will say how much of your sport is mental and how much is physical. And most people will answer a big proportion of their sport is mental. And then the next question that comes into play is, well, how much time do you spend mentally training? And usually people will say, well, I really don't, or 0, or maybe 10%. But the
Right.
real answer is 100% of the time you're mentally training. 100% of the time. Every
Whether
time
you know it or not, right?
Right. Every time you
Yeah.
think about your sport, every time you're engaging in your sport, every time you put yourself in those situations, you have thoughts about that. And those thoughts can either be helping you progress forward for your future or holding you back from achieving what you want to. And so
Mm.
when we think about it that way, a lot of what we do in our practice is really working to get people to be more independent without needing us. So I always say, our goal with every athlete we work with is to work ourselves out of a job. Like
Sure. Yeah.
we don't want them to become mentally dependent upon us. We just want
Right.
to teach them how to get their minds in the right place at the right time for their highest level of success on a consistent basis. And so for some people, that might just mean coming and meeting with us a couple of times, getting their heads in the right space, and then they're good to go. Other people might need a few more sessions. So it's really, the idea is you're always doing mental reps. Are you
Mhm.
doing it correctly? So sure, your kid might be great now. That's awesome. But if they're at the level where they are right now in 5 years, are they going to achieve what they want to achieve? And what this does is really helps give them a leg up on their current level of performance to be able to take it to the next level if that's what they're looking to do. Another piece that I think is really important for parents is, although we teach skills through sport, they really are life skills, right? I
Right.
mean, kids get nervous when they go to compete in sport, but they also get nervous when they take tests or when they go for a job interview later in life.
Sure.
They
Public
have this
speaking. Yeah.
public speaking,
Mhm.
asking the pretty girl to the prom, like
Sure. Yeah.
that's a part of our lives. And so the
Mhm.
techniques that we teach them through sport can also be utilized in life. And that's why I was saying earlier that everything we do every day is a performance. And so it's really about kind of giving you this mental toughness skills that you can apply to so many different situations in your life so that you can be at your best when it matters the most. Right. And then
Right.
the other piece that you were asking about, right, is that
Yes, I think that's so common. Like, I'm not going to go do that, or maybe there's an embarrassment factor with younger athletes, or I feel I've seen it with my own children, with the own athletes I've worked with. Of um, that is almost an admission of weakness to go do something like that.
yeah. And I think that's where people are getting confused between the
Mhm.
mental health piece and the mental performance piece, right?
Okay.
So thinking of us on that mental performance piece, right? Would you be embarrassed to go to a strength and conditioning coach because you wanted to get physically stronger?
Only because I wasn't as strong as I wanted to be when I first went in.
Right? But you
Right.
wouldn't be embarrassed to
No,
go and to get stronger, right?
no,
Would you be embarrassed as an athlete to go to a specialist coach?
no,
So if you're a soccer goalie, if you went to a keeper coach and you got specific training for being a keeper, would that be embarrassing?
no. I would be
Oh,
excited. It would, give me the extra tools.
exactly. And that's exactly what we are. We are specialized coaches to help you be at your best when it matters the most. And quite frankly, if you look at pro sports and all the major organizations right now, they all have somebody on board. They're all
Mm.
bringing people on board. Many of them have multiple people on board. Personally, I've been with Olympic teams for over 20 years now. And the best of the best are using mental toughness coaches because they recognize that this needs to be in the right place at the right time for their best performances to come out. And so for a lot of people, there's nothing embarrassing about it. In fact, you're giving yourself a leg up on the competition, even when that competition or your biggest competition is yourself. How do you overcome
Sure.
that? And so honestly, it is not a luxury anymore. It is not an extra anymore. It is a necessity. If you absolutely want to be at your best when it matters the most, training your brain specifically, deliberately knowing what to think and when to think it is absolutely imperative.
It makes sense to hear you explain it, and I'm just so grateful because I know I've had personal experience with you to see your athletes' confidence come back and their shoulders square again, and then be able to use those tools, like you said, not just in their sport, but throughout life. It really does make such a difference. And I know through my years of coaching, we would talk about when you get to that highest level, everybody's good.
Right.
There's nobody who's not good enough to be at that level. So then it comes down to who's controlling their emotions, who can keep their cool, who doesn't, have those choke moments under pressure. And had I had the ability to work with you coaching, I mean, I think you would have been my first phone call. And if I ever came out of retirement, I know you'd be my first phone call, because that mental toughness. And I think as coaches, we often think, oh, my team's tough, but then when you really go back and analyze your team's performance, are the mistakes they're making, could those be avoided through mental performance? And I think a lot of times we would find ourselves answering yes to that question. So that leads me into kind of from a coach's perspective. Do you work with full teams? What does that look like if you are working with a team? Are you at practices, games? Is it kind of, program dependent?
It's really program dependent. So our goal with every athlete, with every coach, with every team, with every parent, with every organization that we work with is to get them to a place of being independent, and whatever that takes depends on the person, the individual, the organization, the team, right? So we offer everything from coming in one time and doing a one-time session, which can be impactful but not isn't nearly as impactful as having perhaps a whole season, right? So
Right.
we can be as integrated as you want us to be. We could come in, once a week. And when I say come in, yes, we're in the middle of COVID. That could also be virtual, right? I'm currently working with a team who actually is located on the other side of the country, and we do virtual sessions once a week with the entire team. Great. So whether coming in is in person, whether it's virtual, whatever it might be, we can do everything from a one-time session to a once a week kind of session to as often as you want that to be. Typically within teams, we do kind of like a generic mental toughness kind of idea. So for example, it might be, as you mentioned, controlling your emotions. And so we're
Right.
going to do this team session, and we always personalize it to the age, the gender, the sport, all of that stuff going on. And we have conversations with coaches to really get to know their players prior to doing this.
Mhm.
And we make it very specific to the team, but kind of generic enough that everybody on that call can get something from it. And then from there, we could even incorporate individual sessions. So maybe there's 2 or 3 athletes who are like, that was really interesting, but I still don't know what to do for me. We can have those individual sessions with those particular athletes to help them with that. Another piece of what we do with teams is sometimes we don't even meet the athletes, but we just work with the coaches, coaching
Okay.
education.
I was actually just going to ask that if you
Yeah.
work specifically with coaches.
Absolutely. The reality is, even if we're fully integrated with a team, we're generally not at practice every single day, especially during COVID when there's
Right.
limited numbers allowed to be there. But guess who is? The coach. And so if we can work through the coach and help the coach learn how to coach mental skills a little better, as I was saying earlier, every coach is also coaching mental skills, whether you recognize it or not, whether you're doing it
Right.
deliberately or not, you are influencing the mentality of your athletes. And so we've had several situations where we've never even met the players, but we worked pretty closely with the coaches to help teach them how to do a better job teaching mental skills to their players. So it's a
Sure.
part of their vernacular and what they're doing. So there's so many things that we offer. It's so exciting to be able to offer so many different things for everybody involved. But what we really focus on is personalizing it for you. What do you need? When you come in, we don't pretend to have all the answers because quite frankly, you're the expert of yourself and of your athletes, but we can formulate a program around what you're looking for that's going to be most helpful for you.
This might sound like a funny question, but is there ever an athlete who is too far gone, who has themselves so jumbled up in the brain and is such a hot mess before they compete that you kind of just go, try piano? I don't know. Like, I mean, has that ever happened to where, I see all these success stories and amazing testimonials on your Instagram and your Facebook, which is, I mean, it really is inspiring. But what do you do? Or is it possible to have somebody who you just go, I don't know, like your nerves are just, I can't help you.
Yeah, awesome question. The only person that we can't help is the person who doesn't want the help.
Hmm.
So if someone, I can't tell you how many times I've been to a team, and it's usually holds true that the person who needs it the most is the one who's the most resistant. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I have your answers. But they're back and going,
Interesting.
I don't want to come and see you. Like, all right.
Sure.
Right. Like that's on you. If you don't want help, there's nothing we can do for you because you're not going to listen. You're not going to be open to it. But I would say no one's too far gone. I mean, we can always improve. Maybe you're so far in your career that you'll never quite make it to where you originally intended to go. But I truly believe that you could perform a little bit better than what you're performing now, whatever
Mhm.
that means, whatever that looks like for you. So,
Right.
depending on how long it's been a part of your performance and how long it's been a part of your life and how big it is, it might take a little bit longer to get
Mhm.
there. And but I still believe that there can be an improvement. And I haven't yet seen anyone who I did absolutely everything I could for and I couldn't help. Unless, like I said, they just didn't want it from the beginning. If you don't want it,
Right.
that's not much we can do for you.
Right. And speaking of time frames and living in this instant gratification culture where, we want something fixed immediately, what's a realistic time frame? Because obviously it takes some work, just like learning any new skills takes work. So I would assume that after your first free session, you're probably not, fixed up, good to go, and on your way. Is there a typical time frame?
Yeah, that's a good question too. And the answer is no, there is no typical time frame. There are as many different time frames as there are people in this world. So it's
Hmm.
really part of what we do is really personalizing. So if we have individual athletes, is really figuring out where are you right now? Where do you want to be? And then how can we get you there? And we fill in that how piece, right? So for some people, legit, they just have one or two things that they just can't quite figure out. And they'll come in a couple of sessions and that's it. That's all they needed. And that's
Right.
awesome. And
Hmm.
others, I mean, I've had some teams, I've worked with teams at US Ski and Snowboard for over 20 years. And yes, our goal is to work ourselves out of a job, but teams are always changing, right? So there's always new
Right.
people coming in. And so we have to look at it from that perspective as well. So the time frame really varies, but I will say, one of the things that we do from the beginning is we give home fun, not homework. Homework sucks. Nobody likes homework. We give home
Home fun.
fun.
I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah, which is mental skills. It's mental skills training. It's doing your mental reps. If you don't do your mental reps, you can't expect to become more mentally tough or more mentally strong. Just like if you don't do your physical reps, you can't expect to improve your strength, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And so we give people those home fun, mental assignments, mental reps to do. And so a big factor is the individual being responsible and accountable in doing their mental reps, doing those things that we encourage them to do. And if they don't do them, you can't expect much improvement. But if you
Right.
do them, you certainly can, right? So good news and bad news, I think, about mental toughness training. The bad news is it does take time and it does take effort. You can't just come in and talk to us. We don't have a magic pill that we can give you that's all of
Right.
a sudden going to make you mentally tough. You have to put some time and effort into it. Good news though is it can be learned. Absolutely, not without a doubt, it can be learned. You are never too far gone as long as you're open to learning. And honestly, the longest home fun will ever give you is like 20 minutes a day. That's it. So it's not like you go to practice for 3 hours and then you come home and you have 3 hours of mental reps to do, and then you have your homework. And we're not talking that. We're talking
Right.
maybe 20 minutes. It might be a daily thing. It might be something you really do at home. It may be something that you start incorporating into practices right away, something you take immediately to competition. There's so many different options. And again, we just personalize it for what that person needs in that moment.
What's the best piece of advice that you can give to parents who have athletes that are losing confidence, struggling with nerves before they compete, almost seem to be losing the joy for their sport? Do you have advice for parents in that situation?
Yeah, that's a tough one to answer because, again, everybody's so different.
Mhm.
But what I would say is be very careful about how much you are pushing your child with maybe not even knowing that you're pushing your child. Especially now during COVID, times are really hard for people, and people are so much more stressed and feel under so much more pressure. And that includes our kids. That's not just us as adults, but that's our kids. And
Sure.
so, what I would say is really sit down and have a conversation with your child and open the door for them to tell you how they're feeling, what they're thinking about their competition, how they're feeling about their performances. And then as far as confidence goes, it's so simple. So many parents will go in and just say, well, you should feel this or you should think that, and we're well intentioned, right? And I say
Right.
all the time, as a parent myself, I always have the right intentions for my kids, but it doesn't mean I always do the right thing.
Sure. It doesn't always translate. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I just have to pay attention to, is what I'm doing working or do I need to change things? And
Right.
having that open conversation with my child to know what's going to help them become the best version of themselves. Right. But one
Right.
of the things that I do really encourage parents to do when it comes to confidence, as you mentioned, confidence is actually one of those things that kids tend to struggle with the most, and actually athletes do the most. In fact, a
Yeah.
little bit of a tangent here, but practicing for over 22 years, there's two things that people come to us for more than anything else. And those two things are far and above what others come to us for. And
Okay.
those two things are confidence and what I kind of lump into is emotional control. So whether that's pre-performance anxiety, like you just mentioned, they're so nervous and their confidence is low. Boom, you just hit the two main things, right? So
Okay.
it might be pre-performance anxiety. It might be letting go of mistakes. It might be beating themselves up about certain things, but that emotional piece, that piece that just kind of gets you revved up and you don't know what to do about it, right?
Right. And it's hard to watch as a parent to
Oh,
see your child go through that and lose their confidence. It's a very difficult situation when you can't fix it for your child or take it away for them.
right. Yeah. And so, what I would encourage parents to do prior to any games or performances or even going into practice. So, actually, let's do it this way. What I would encourage parents to do is after practice every day, when your kid comes home, say, hey, how did practice go? Open ended question. Let
Mhm.
your child answer the question however they feel. But then always end that conversation with, give me one reason why you will succeed in the next performance, something
Mhm.
along that regard. So give me one reason why you will succeed, or give me one thing that went really well at practice today, or tell me one thing that you're proud of that you did at practice today. And something open ended like that to get them thinking more on the positive side.
Positive. Yeah.
We come from a culture that stresses and emphasizes the negative. And for most of us, our default mode of thinking is very negative. Well, I sucked at this and this didn't go well. And boom, 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 boom. And that's where we automatically go to. And for our kids, we got to pull them out of that sometimes and say, tell me something good,
Yeah.
right? The other piece that you can go to there is if they're really kind of stuck in the suck and stuck in that negative, you can go to, well, what did you learn from that? How
Mhm.
can you use that to improve? How can you, right? So kind of pull them out of the suck a little bit by
Yeah.
giving them some direction and leaving that open ended. So that's what I would say after practices. But then prior to going into a performance, a game, a competition, whatever it might be, have them give you 3 reasons why they'll be successful.
Mhm.
And here's the reason behind this. It goes down to our confirmation bias. There's a lot of research on this, but basically what it talks about is, I don't care who you are, what sport you play, how good you are. If you look for reasons to fail, you're going to find them. And
Yeah.
every one of those reasons will be legitimate. They'll all be, well, I didn't train very hard, or I didn't get enough sleep, or, coach doesn't like me very much, or, whatever it is, we'll
Mhm.
come up with all those reasons. And I can guarantee you, your kid already has those reasons. They're
Right.
already thinking that way. Right.
Right.
But on the
Yep.
other side of the coin, I don't care who you are, what sport you play, how good you are. If you look for reasons to succeed, you'll find those too. And those can be just as legitimate. So, as parents, we have to help balance the scale a little bit. The kids are already in that negative, I'm not good enough kind of mindset. Balancing the scale by saying, okay, I can recognize those things, I can acknowledge those, but I'd like for you to also recognize and acknowledge what you've put into this that's going to be helpful for you,
Mhm.
and then work to keep their minds there. They're going to go back to the negative, and that's okay. But then pull them back into that positive. Give me some reasons why you're going to be successful. Give me some reasons why you're going to have fun. Give me some reasons that you're going to love this competition today. Use whatever terminology makes the most sense for your family, but it's pulling them into that positivity and helping them see their value and how that value can be related to success and however success is defined, which isn't always winning. It's just being your best when it matters the most, or having fun.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, my son used to play baseball and soccer, and I'll tell you what, that kid was the best dancer on the field, right? And
I
so,
love that.
yes, after games, sometimes I'd be like, dude, you had the best dance moves of everybody on the
Yep.
team, right?
Yep.
Win,
I
loss,
read something one time that really resonated with me, and it was before I was a parent myself. And now that I am a parent, it really hits home. But it said, next time you're on your way home in the car with your child post game, try saying, I love watching you play, and
yes,
leaving it at that.
yes,
And that to me was really, it was so positive. And I thought that is really powerful, such a simple, positive statement. And then if they want to discuss it more, then like you said, those things, what did you learn? What's something you loved? But yeah, it's a hard balance as parents, because there's this pressure of your athlete being the best and specializing so young. And what extras are you doing to make sure that your 7-year-old is going to get a college scholarship? I mean, you know what I mean? It's just, so yeah, I think that all of this training can translate into parenting, and
mhm,
really help that the journey, right? The athletic journey be positive for both athlete and parent.
Yeah. And Becky, you're bringing up such a great point. And I do want to I'm going to give, we do have a podcast. It's called Becoming Headstrong. And in that podcast, I'm going to give a tip to one of my colleagues, Nick Galley. He did an episode on this that I thought was just brilliant for parents. And I don't have the resources right now to be able to tell you exactly what episode number it was, but I'm sure you could go find it. It's about parenting. But the example he used, I thought was brilliant for parents. Imagine yourself having a really bad day at work. So you go to work, things just aren't working. You get in a fight with a colleague, your computer's not working. You got to call IT. They don't get there right away. You miss a meeting, you're late, all of these things. You just had a really bad day at work. Then imagine you go home from work or you're leaving work and you're so relieved it's finally over. You just want to go home and you go get in your car. And as you're getting ready to leave, the passenger door opens and your boss gets in the car. And all the way home, your boss is berating you for all the mistakes you made that day. Well, why did you do this? And why did you do that? And you know better than this. And you know better than that. And I don't like this. And I'm paying you to do this. And this is the results that I get. That's essentially what parents do to their kids after games.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Oh my gosh, kids are already beating themselves up. They're already mad. They know when they made a mistake. You don't have to tell them. They already know.
Right.
They're already beating themselves up. And so when a parent's driving that kid home after the game and they're saying, well, you didn't do this right, and I'm putting all this money into it, and you're not even trying very hard, and you made this mistake, we are really putting our kids in a space of negativity, and they're going to end up resenting us. They're going to end up resenting the sport. They're going to end up hating things. No wonder they're so negative and they have so many difficulties. And so let's go. Yeah. I mean, I thought that was such a powerful example that Nick talked about in one of those
wonderful
episodes. And so I wanted to bring it up now because I think you're so right for parents. If we could just say, I love watching you play and let the kid talk from there or not talk.
Right.
It's okay if they don't talk. Be mom and dad, be supportive, right? And then open the door for your kid to come and talk to you later if they choose to do so.
And let Headstrong do the work on the brain.
Exactly.
Right? We'll let you guys take on that burden.
Yeah.
So last question, and I could talk to you for hours, so maybe we'll have to do this again, but do you have, or maybe you have a couple, favorite success stories? Whether it be teams or individuals and you don't just work with athletes, right? You work with businesses a lot. So is there anything that comes to mind as a favorite career moment so far? I mean, you're far from obviously being done with your career, but
there are so many. This is going to sound so cheesy and so cliche, but it's so true. I mean, I have been in tears when a 10-year-old came in my office and say, I finally got my first hit,
sure.
Right? 10-year-old player who finally got his first hit. He was so excited. And I'm like, oh my gosh, right? And I've been in tears when I've been standing at the Olympic Games watching an athlete get a medal put around their neck who I know put in so much time and effort and sacrifice and all that kind of stuff. And so, I mean, I could tell you stories that I'm sure, some people might appreciate more, but for me, it's just helping someone become the best version of themselves. And then they come back and they're, or they're just so excited. I mean, that's the best moments for me. I'm about in tears now just thinking about it.
You know what though, your passion comes through, which I think is why you've made the impact on so many different age groups and teams and people that you have. And so again, I can speak from just a personal standpoint that you have impacted my family and my children's lives positively, but I know you've done that for so many more than me. So I loved hearing everything. Like I said, I think we should do this again because I know you have amazing stories from athletes you've worked with too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, maybe we'll just do a story episode next time because I definitely have stories that I think some people would find entertaining and some people would be surprised at some of the things that come up in my world. Some of the stuff, you just can't make this stuff up. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, it's just helping other people achieve their dreams is really what drives me and helps me continue on the path and journey that I'm on. I'm really fortunate in that I get to go to work every day. I don't have to go to work. I get to go to work and I get to have this influence on people and to teach them these skills that I know are going to be such a positive impact on their lives. And that's just, that is so cool for me. I absolutely love it.
So for people who want to follow the Headstrong journey, you're on social media, right? Yep. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok,
and Twitter.
and Twitter. So
Yep.
we can link all those and we'll do that so that people can go follow you.
Cool.
And then to subscribe to the Becoming Headstrong podcast, which is just a quick, right? Anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes typically. Great way to start your day.
Exactly. So we have new episodes that drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning, and they're all 10 minutes or less. That's our goal. And they're just quick tips and tricks. There's 4 of us in the practice. And so it's, in general, you'll hear from each of us every 4th episode. So you're hearing different voices, you're hearing different ideas. You never know when one of them is going to be exactly what you need to hear that day. But
Right.
even if it wasn't, it was 10 minutes of your time. So pop it in and you never know what you get from it. And as far as I'm aware, we're on all the major podcast platforms. So you should be able to find us anywhere.
Excellent. So download and subscribe wherever you get your podcast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Becoming Headstrong.
Yes. Thank you so much. That was really fun. And we'll talk again soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.